the most response we've had to date on social media since the presidential campaign announcement of Donald Trump is our story yesterday about Donald Trump's comments about the 9/11 terror attacks. Trump wrote in his book, published in the year 2000, in amazing clarity, really, about Osama bin Laden and the attacks that he said were sure to come, and they did. Is Donald Trump actually a genius when it comes to fighting terror? Has everyone underestimated this guy? Here to discuss is John Hawkins of rightwingnews.com. John Hawkins, welcome back to the show.
Gina, it is absolutely fantastic to be on with you again.
Always good to have you, John. All right, every now and then, I get to be a guest instead of a host, and I get to give my opinion. And today on Fox Business, I was asked why Trump is still killing it in the polls even after his comments about George W. Bush and the 9/11 attacks. And I'm going to play it for you now. Go ahead and roll it, guys.
I think that the people see him as somebody who is going to be tough on terror and immigration, and I think that's what this comes down to. People know that, you know, no matter how much we liked the way George W. handled things after the whole terrorist attack took place, that a couple of those terrorists were illegals, and Donald Trump has vowed a zero tolerance policy on illegal immigration, and I think that's what this comes down to, and I think that's why he's gaining in the polls.
This is part of his...
He didn't get there, as you know, by being somebody who wasn't brilliant at what he did. And I think most Americans are looking at that and saying, you know, if he could do for the typical American what he's done for his empire, then I think that would be a great thing. And I think it's really disrespectful as a pundit. I really try to say that, you know, to insult his supporters and say that they're just looking at this from an entertainment perspective. No, he's put up his position papers on his website. He's been very clear about where he stands on the Second Amendment.
I feel like he at least came forward with a tax plan, which I can't say of every candidate out there.
And the Second Amendment
side, we got
and
nothing.
illegal immigration.
John, I got into it a little bit with Meghan McCain. What are your thoughts on why Trump was able to criticize the last Republican president and still gain in the polls over the weekend?
Well, first of all, was anything he said untrue? The attack did happen on George Bush's watch. They weren't warned that specifically was going to happen. They knew something was coming. And yes, immigration policies, tight ones, might have prevented it. I believe, if I remember correctly, the report that came out said there were 6 of them who ended up being here illegally by overstaying their visas. There were another dozen of them, I believe, who had driver's licenses in Florida, Jebb's home state. If we had tight immigration policies, yes, it would have stopped it. Now, that's something you don't normally hear from a Republican because it's a Democrat criticism. It's sort of like you don't hear Democrats say Hillary's a liar, she's corrupt, and she eats small children that wander into her gingerbread house. It's true, but you just don't hear it from other Democrats.
All right. John, in other trending political news, Jim Webb dropped out of the Democrat presidential race. Let's watch what he said, and then I want to get your thoughts on that.
I fully accept that my views on many issues are not compatible with the power structure and the nominating base of the Democratic Party. That party is filled with millions of dedicated, hard-working Americans, but its hierarchy is not comfortable with many of the policies that I have laid forth, and frankly, I'm not that comfortable with many of theirs. For this reason, I'm withdrawing from any consideration of being the Democratic Party's nominee for the presidency. How I remain as a voice will depend on what kind of support I'm shown in the coming weeks as I meet with people from all sides of America's political landscape, and I intend to do that.
All right, John, every pundit from here to Canada is saying that, of course, this would hurt the Republicans if Webb were to jump out and run as an independent. But I want your analysis on that.
I don't know why they say that, because one, he's a blue dog Democrat, so he's going to appeal to a certain type of Democrat who's just going to, like, listen, I love my grandfather, who's, you know, bless his heart, he's not alive anymore, but he would, you know, he was one of those yellow dog Democrats. He would vote for a little yellow dog before he'd ever vote for a Republican. Some of those people would find a guy like Jim Webb appealing, too, if you go beyond that to his actual record in the Senate. he was extremely liberal in his voting record. I believe he had an ACU rating of 17. This is not a guy, he can come out and talk about, well, he's more moderate, that kind of thing, but this is a guy who voted far left when he was in office. I think he's definitely would pull more Democrats than Republicans. I don't know really why people are going to think they're going to look at this guy and all sorts of Republicans are going to want to run over to him. Maybe they think there's going to be so many disaffected people, if let's say Jeb gets the nomination, that Webb might start to look good to him. I don't know, but I don't think he's very appealing to Republicans.
No, I don't see how he takes the Republican base. And just to clarify, the ACU is the American Conservative Union, which really has nothing to do with unions, and I don't really know why they use that name. John, I also saw a story trending today that said the president's approval rating is higher than any other time in his second term. John, what is Obama doing right?
I think people are hearing less from him, and it's easy for him to just sort of block them out of their thing. You know, it's sort of like you have a broken arm or something and you spend the day, you don't have to do anything with your arm, and it's like, wow, the arm doesn't feel bad. Oh, wait, it's still broken. And then you realize it's still there and you start to dislike him. It's sort of like with Hillary. People liked her a lot better when they didn't hear anything from her. And I think it's the same way with Obama.
That's a great analogy, John. I could have never come up with that one. All right. A high approval rating for the president may help push Vice President Biden into the race for president. John, do you think Biden is going to jump in, and what effect, if so, will that have on the race?
Well, that'll be the third socialist in there with Bernie and Hillary. I mean,
Yep.
Bernie's the only declared one. Joe has run 2 less than stellar presidential campaigns. It tells you an awful lot that people are looking to this guy and saying, oh boy, maybe Joe Biden can save us. Slow Joe, the guy who makes all the weird comments, the guy who makes the creepy touching things with all the women, who rubs his hands all over them. He's kind of gross and weird, and he's 70-some years old, another old white guy. It just tells you how sad things are on the Democrat side, that anybody would look at Joe Biden and say, wow, this is the guy we need to come in and save us.
But I mean, isn't there like a morbid curiosity part of you that kind of hopes he gets in just because popcorn?
Hey, the more of them in, the better. Jump in the water. It's a lot of fun. We're stuck with, you know, Lindsey Graham and Jim Gilmore and these guys. So, hey, why not Joe Biden? Jump in there. Water's warm, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same way. What impact do you think a Joe Biden run will have in the near future on Hillary? Do you think it'll immediately drop her numbers hard, or do you think they'll split her vote, or do you think he'll pull from the other candidates?
That's pretty interesting. It looked like because they have actually been some polls out there where they have Hillary, Joe, and Bernie all in the same poll, and it looks like he pulls from both of them, but he's in third place when they do that. Bernie's ahead of him, Hillary's ahead of him, he comes in third. He doesn't have a campaign apparatus set up yet. That's something he would have to get together. I think she's probably locked up a lot of big donors. I think he would have a kind of an uphill run, and I can guarantee you Hillary would be brutal. She would savage him. So, I mean, they've been sort of putting the fillers out there like, I hope Joe goes into retirement and doesn't have his reputation ruined by accidentally getting in and taking on Hillary. That would be a real shame. So, I don't know. I tend to think, at least right now, he would start in third place, and then we'd have to see what he could do.
Well, we'll have to watch and see. Thanks for being with us, John Hawkins. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I always love doing your show, Gina.
Thanks. Love having you. Don't forget, you can find his work at rightwingnews.com. Up next, we talk to a